You're listening to Beyond Wellness Radio, bringing you the cutting edge in health, nutrition, and sports performance. Stay up to date and listen anywhere, anytime on your computer, tablet, or smartphone by subscribing on iTunes. Catch your hosts, Dr. Justin Marchegiani and Barris Harvey, as they answer your burning health questions as well as interviews from world-renowned guest experts. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.
Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani, and welcome to another awesome episode of Beyond Wellness Radio. We now have full podcast transcriptions over at justinhealth.com. Head over to justinhealth.com, click on the podcast button, and you'll be able to access all shows forward and past. And while you're there, feel free and sign up for the thyroid and hormone video series. Some great information there for everyone. And while you're there, you can also sign up for the podcast newsletter, where you'll get access to these podcasts right in your inbox before anyone else. While you're there, you can also schedule a consult with myself if you want to dive into any other functional medicine or health issues. You can also access my partner in crime here, Barris Harvey, at reallyhealthynow.com. Barris is also available for nutritional consults as well. Again, stay tuned for the show, and if you're enjoying it, please feel free and share it. Sharing is caring. Think of one person that could benefit from this show and share it. And also, feel free and head over to beyondwellnessradio.com/iTunes and send us a review. We really appreciate it. Thanks, and enjoy the show. Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani. Welcome back to Beyond Wellness Radio. Today we have an awesome guest, Wendy Myers, straight from Malibu, California. So we're really excited to have Wendy on. We're thinking about talking about detox and coffee enemas and infrared saunas and who knows what else will come up. So Wendy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, tell me a little bit about you and how you got into the functional medicine world. I know you have a blog yourself, live to110.com, which is really cool because, I mean, why live to 100 when you can live to 110, right?
Exactly. Well, I got into health just because I was planning my pregnancy and I realized I needed to start eating healthier and, nourishing my body. And, a couple years later, studying, I finally had my child, got pregnant. And then I had to clean up my toxic environment. When you have a baby, you can't use regular cleaners. And I had never really thought about that before, that I was putting toxic chemicals all over my house. And, you had to clean up all your beauty products. And I realized I had a lot of work to do with detoxing my home.
Yeah.
And then my father, unfortunately, got diagnosed with esophageal cancer. And he lived in Austin, Texas, and he passed away within about 6 months of his cancer treatments. And he was on about 10 medications, obviously not normal about that. And I just really sought to find the answers to why everyone is so sick. Why are 1 in 2 people, developing cancer and autoimmune diseases? And, there's so many health issues people are having. And so I eventually concluded through all my research and writing on live to110.com that it's mineral and nutrient deficiencies and heavy metal and chemical toxicities that are the underlying root cause of disease. So my mission is to educate people about that and help them heal their health conditions naturally.
That's great. And how important is it for the gut? Because I see so many patients that come in, they're eating good, they're already on really good supplementation, but then, we look and they're still really nutrient deficient, however you want to test that, whether it's a SpectraCell or an organics or a NutriEval, we see lots of nutrient deficiencies. How important is the gut, and how do you implement healing the gut with your programs?
Yes, well, it's the gut, of course, is the foundation of your health. If you don't have a healthy gut, you can't absorb nutrients. And even if you have a healthy gut, everyone's mineral and nutrient deficient anyways, because the food is deficient, the soil is deficient. It's been eroded. So even if you eat a perfect diet, you have to supplement minerals and nutrients for the rest of your life. There's just no way around that if you plan to be healthy. But as far as the gut, I have the same thing with my clients. Over half of my clients have some measure of gut dysfunction, the border villi has been blunted. They have leaky gut, many food sensitivities, and all the things related to an unhealthy gut, not to mention parasitic, bacterial, or yeast candida infections. So I definitely work with the clients. You can pretty much pick up on it with symptoms. You have some symptomology, gut dysfunction, constipation, diarrhea. Then I can do testing on them. But I like to do organic acids testing, the gut bug poo test, and just see what all the
Love
bacteria
it.
and things in their body are pooping out, and kind of tell you what's going on inside them.
That's really cool. Very good. So you talked about gut infections and parasites. What are the big infections that you're seeing with your patients?
I mean, of course, Candida.
Yeah.
Candida is the biggest problem because parasites are opportunistic,
Hmm.
and as someone's health begins to decline, as they first usually develop adrenal fatigue, and then they start feeling fatigued and want stimulants, and they just have this downward decline. And as the host becomes weaker and weaker, then parasites and yeast start to take hold.
Right.
H. pylori is very common, and Candida as well, and various parasites. But as those begin to take hold, then the person becomes sicker and sicker and sicker, and develops more and more problems. But like I said, these parasites are opportunistic. So as long as you keep your body strong, people tend to not have as much of a problem. Their immune system can fight off these bugs. But what I'm finding is, because people are so nutrient deficient, their immune systems are deficient and weakened. They're very good hosts. They're
Right.
very tasty.
Right, right. And you mentioned a lot about minerals, and we know minerals are really important. They're like activators for our cells. So can you give me like your favorite 3 to 5 minerals? And I get they're all important and you need them, synergistically, but what are your big 3 to 5?
Well, my favorite one, I think the most important one, is magnesium.
Of course, yeah.
And that's needed for, over 3,700 processes in the body. We're finding more every
Is
day.
it that many now? I thought it was like 300.
No, it's
Oh
3,700.
my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good friends with Morley Robbins. He's a magnesium man, and
Yeah,
his
Morley,
estimate's 3,700. Yeah, today.
3,700.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a million.
Wow.
But those are only ones we know about. But I really like to give my clients multiple forms of magnesium.
Hmm.
My favorite one's magnesium glycinate, because that raises RBC magnesium. Um,
Hold on one sec. I
yeah.
guarantee you I'm going to guess your second favorite. Ready?
What?
Magnesium malate.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
kudos.
Yes.
Love it.
Yeah. And that one, it gives you energy, and it helps to detox metals and whatnot. And then, of course, I like magnesium citrate too. I like natural calm vitality, magnesium citrate. And that's nice to add as well. Not everyone responds to citrates, but they have their place. But most supplements have magnesium citrate in them, but it's not the most ideal form. But everyone, responds to different forms, and you kind of have to find what works for you. But I just start out clients with all three of those just to cover all those bases.
I think there's a product by Designs for Health that has all three together. I think they have the glycinate, the malate, and maybe even the citrate. Have you tried something that has all three, or do you use them all separately in different bottles?
You know what? I haven't found a product that has all three. I found one that was like a liquid
Hmm.
that I wasn't really going to work, that has the malate and glycinate, but I'm
Hmm.
developing a formula right now.
Ooh, cool.
I'm developing my own supplement line called Bio Rehab, and my partner,
Nice.
we're going to be developing a magnesium that, fits what I'm looking for.
Very cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
So when you typically dose up magnesium, are you dosing it to bowel tolerance so the person gets loose stools, or are you finding that these chelates are just absorbing so well you're not getting that effect?
Well, I think that, people need to take 5 times their body weight in milligrams.
Hmm.
So 5 times their body weight in pounds in milligrams. And I find that if you do that, people do not tend to have loose bowels. Everyone's a little bit different though, but the glycinate does tend to cause loose bowels, but some people have to take quite a bit before that happens.
Got
But
it.
you also don't want to take too much because it can lower sodium, which affects, adrenals and things like that.
Hmm.
But, you kind of have to find what works for you.
Right. So you said 5 times your body weight. So if I'm 200 pounds, I'd be taking about a gram of
Yeah,
magnesium. Is that correct?
exactly.
Good. And are you doing red blood cell magnesium testing as well?
I do. I like clients to do that, because, we definitely need to know what our RBC magnesium is and raise that. It needs to be between 5 and 7. A lot of labs have it a little bit lower. The lab
Yeah.
range is lower, but it really needs between 5 and 7. Most of my clients are at 5 or under 5, and it's almost like running your car on 1 quart of oil. When you
Hmm.
need 5 or 6. So
Hmm.
it's just the engine's not going to run optimally.
Exactly. I think on my laboratory analysis form, I think I say 5.7 to 6.8. So yeah, we're right in the ballpark there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very cool. So you mentioned some minerals, and we know those are really important. We know magnesium gets depleted by eating lots of refined sugar because it's so important for blood sugar. What would your next mineral be after magnesium?
Definitely zinc.
Zinc. Hmm.
Most people are deficient in zinc. You got to have zinc to have a healthy immune
Yeah.
system. Men need it to, make sperm and testosterone, things like that.
Yep.
So it's very, very important for men. But it's also needed to keep copper in check. I
Yep.
find a lot of clients have copper toxicity, copper dysregulation. It's really one of the biggest problems in all of my clients. I've only tested 2 people who do not have copper dysregulation in their body,
Hmm.
and it happens as a result of adrenal fatigue. Yeah.
That makes sense because we know zinc is important to keep copper in check. How do you copper detox? Are you just giving higher amounts of zinc to help flush out the copper?
Well, it's not necessarily that simple. You can't tank up too much on zinc because
Hmm.
it can cause its host of problems. But, just, a decent amount, 30 to 50 milligrams perhaps. And definitely chelated zinc is ideal, absorbs better. And getting rid of copper is complex. Some of my clients are extremely copper toxic, and it's a process to get rid of that. I think coffee enemas are a great way to help the liver get rid of it. Copper stores in the liver. People also, they have to heal their adrenal glands. One of the reasons the copper builds up in their tissues and is bio-unavailable and can't be used is because of adrenal fatigue.
Mm.
And when the adrenals are fatigued, it suppresses their signaling to the liver to produce a protein called ceruloplasmin that binds to copper to make it bioavailable in the body. So in the absence of adequate ceruloplasmin, the copper will build up and, cause all kinds of problems. Definitely any female with endometriosis or ovarian cysts or fibroids, anything of that nature, it's because of copper toxicity without a doubt. It causes so many symptoms, namely anxiety, panic attacks, depression. There's just headaches. Anyone with migraine headaches, that's going to be copper related. So there's really a whole host of symptoms, and a lot of people are really suffering from copper toxicity.
Got it. So let's back up a little bit there. You mentioned this protein or this enzyme called ceruloplasmin, and that gets low when we're having adrenal fatigue. Is that what you mentioned?
Yeah, well, one of the adrenal's jobs is to signal to the liver to produce ceruloplasmin, and when
Okay.
they're fatigued, they can't do that part of their job. So that's part of reducing copper in the body is healing the adrenal glands. And one way you do that is you eat meat, is eat animal protein, because we need
Right.
all those minerals in meat. People think of meat as just protein. It's mineral rich.
It
So we
is.
we have to have meat to heal our adrenal glands. I find that vegetarians don't tend to heal their adrenals. Their adrenals tend to get worse and worse over time. So you need those nutrients in the meat, and especially the zinc that's in red meat, very bioavailable forms in red meat. So that's very much key in helping the body get rid of copper.
Got it. So the adrenals need to be talking to the liver to make this enzyme, and that enzyme or that molecular compound there, the ceruloplasmin, is really important for copper metabolism. Is that the mechanism there for the listeners?
Exactly.
Okay.
And you also have to take care of your liver. One way you take care of it is don't eat high fructose corn syrup or sugar. That reduces the liver's ability
Yep.
to produce ceruloplasmin. I really like when clients do coffee enemas, just a couple a week, not going crazy with them, but just to help, mechanically clean out the liver. And definitely nutritional support for the liver, NAC or glutathione, things of that nature, alpha lipoic acid. Now, just the liver is so important to health and detox and copper dysregulation.
Oh, great. So on that topic right there, let's jump into to these coffee enemas here. So we have like your typical detoxification, which is, supporting phase 1, phase 2 with various herbs, minerals, and amino acids. That's like your functional medicine-based detoxification. Can you talk about coffee enemas, how they're different? What's the advantage? What's the pros and cons versus the two?
Yes. Well, coffee enemas versus supplementation.
Yeah, so like we have like, our general phase 1, phase 2 support in functional medicine. Maybe we're giving milk thistle or
Yeah.
NAC or herbs. How's that different? And how would someone actually go do a coffee enema?
Yes, well, it's always a good idea to give the liver the nutrients it needs. I like to give clients trimethylglycine and
Hmm. Yeah,
other nutrients like that to help
yeah.
with liver function.
Hmm.
It needs nutrients to work, but the coffee enemas work differently in that you're basically mechanically detoxing the liver.
Yes.
And it increases actually glutathione production by about 600% when
Wow.
you do a coffee enema. And you have to have glutathione to bind to heavy metals to take them out of the body. So the metals just don't magically come out. They have to have something to bind to them to remove them. So we have to increase those nutrients in the body. And so the coffee enemas, they have palmitic acid, they have caffeine in them, and those will serve, while they're being held in the colon to dilate all the millions of capillaries and the portal vein that, attaches to the liver. And it just stimulates the liver to dump, all of its toxic contents into the colon for elimination. Additionally, while you're retaining the enema for 5, 10, or 15 minutes, the blood filters through your liver about 4 to 5 times, and it's almost it's cleaning out your blood of all the toxins. So when people, or my clients are detoxing, they're doing infrared saunas or just, increasing their body's vitality with minerals, their body begins to detox and they start having detox symptoms like headaches or nausea. And when you do a coffee enema, you get rid of all the garbage in your bloodstream while your body is, taking its sweet time trying to eliminate these toxins. And you eliminate those issues, those toxins and heavy metals, and you relieve your detox symptoms. So they can really be life-saving for some clients who are dealing with anxiety and headaches and nausea and things like that when they're
Mhm.
detoxing.
Got it. So what kind of coffee should someone be using? I mean, should we be using bulletproof coffee for a coffee enema? Or should we be using certain types of green coffee? Obviously, you're organic and such. And how do we go about doing it? I mean, obviously, we're kind of like in this fetal position, prone, like facing downward. We're obviously waiting for the coffee to cool down to, relatively body temperature. Can you walk us through how you would actually do it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can definitely use bulletproof coffee. I kind of like the coffee enema specific coffee enema
Yeah.
coffees
Hmm.
that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Like S.A. Wilson is good, and I like Pure Life by Dr. Ben Lynch, Seeking Health.
Oh, got it.
And those are great ones because they're a real light roast, so it retains more of the caffeine, and that just makes the coffee enema more effective. Obviously, if you're caffeine sensitive, they're probably not going to work too well for you. So you have to, judge on an individual basis if the coffee enemas are for you. But to do a coffee enema, what you do is, you got to get your equipment. You have to get your enema bag or a coffee enema bucket. I love Seeking Health products. I think they have they have a really good bag and a bucket that you can do. I like the bucket because
Yep.
it's just easy to clean. You can wipe it out and whatnot. And you have like a little hose with
Yep.
a coffee enema, thing at the end, and a tip. It's the tip that goes in your anus.
Yeah.
And so you brew the coffee on the stove. I just usually use about 2 to 3 tablespoons and grind it up fresh, and just boil that on the stove in about an inch of water. And then after that's been boiling for about 10 minutes, then I'll fill it up with filtered or distilled water
Hmm.
all the way to the top of the pan. And then that'll cool it down to body temperature, maybe a little bit warmer. And then you put that in your bucket. And then you just kind of, fill up. You try to only need about a cup or 2 cups of coffee. And then you do the best you can to retain that, for 15 minutes.
So 15 minutes, you're in that kind of like fetal prone position, and then from there you just get up. You're holding your anus tight so it doesn't leak, and then you just go to the bathroom, basically, right? Is that how?
Yeah, it's kind of like wrestling a water moccasin.
Yeah,
It can be kind of hard to hold it in, to retain it. But so if people have problems with that, sometimes a tablespoon of blackstrap molasses can help with that.
got it.
Also putting some Epsom salts
Yeah.
For about, maybe half a tablespoon or half a teaspoon, can be really, really helpful with, relaxing the colon to stop it from spasming so that you have an urge to evacuate.
Hmm.
So that can be really, really helpful. And they're amazing. I mean, you feel like $1,000,000 after you do a coffee enema. You feel really, really good. And it's something I definitely recommend, a couple times a week or as needed for detox symptoms. But there are some people that get a little carried away and do them every single day. And unfortunately, I've had clients doing that, and they come to me and they've been doing it for a while, and they really have very low mineral levels on their hair mineral analyses.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a word of caution. Even though they're healthy, you can get too much of a good thing. And I think they need to be used, sporadically with caution. But of course, you can add some salt, some sea salt to the coffee as well to mitigate any mineral loss.
Okay, got it. So we get this coffee brewing, we add some water. Should we get the water to like about 98 degrees or so to our body temperature? Does it matter how the temperature of the water? Obviously, we don't want it too hot, but is there a certain temperature you like it at?
Well, I don't really go with the temperature. I just kind of put my finger in it. If
Just
it
feel
feels just a little warm, like bath water, it's fine.
bath water.
You
Okay.
just don't want it too hot where it's uncomfortable.
Okay, so what we're doing is we're getting this mechanical push of bile and toxins because we're getting the liver to circulate and filter out faster. And then we're getting all of the dilation of the capillaries in the intestinal tract. And what else? Is it stimulating glutathione too, or is it just a really big mechanical push of
Well,
toxins?
yeah, there's estimates that it increases glutathione by about 600%. I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but I do find that clients that are doing the coffee enemas do have much better results, especially if they're doing a detox program. There's no reason to be miserable while these metals or toxins are floating around while your body is trying to excrete them. Everyone's livers are so toxic today. There was a 2009 study with the World Health Organization that said we have 500 chemicals in our bodies on average.
Wow.
And that's frightening. And our livers have to deal with all that. And there's many chemicals the liver does not know how to detox. So coffee enemas, I think, are very imperative, especially in our country where we have 30% of the population has fatty liver disease.
Right.
Our livers are not working and they need a helping hand. And additionally, if your liver isn't working optimally, it's a very good idea to do infrared saunas because when you sweat out all these toxins through the skin, you bypass the liver.
Mm. Mm. That is true. The skin is a really important mechanism for detoxification.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm a big fan of infrared saunas. It's just there's some metals and things you can only sweat out through your skin. All these metals and chemicals, a lot of, like I said, your liver can't process some of these things. It doesn't recognize them.
Yeah.
They were never around, so even in the last few decades.
Hmm.
So it's very, very important to use take advantage of your skin and sweat out these chemicals and metals. And you can even sweat out uranium and cesium and radioactive metals that we're
Wow.
finding in the environment from Fukushima.
Wow. So walk me through this, right? We do an infrared sauna session, and then we have to towel off or shower right away to get those metals off the skin so we don't reabsorb them. How important is the what should we do after the infrared sauna session?
Absolutely. You ideally want to shower off. I mean, toweling off will work too, but ideally you just want to shower off all this garbage. I actually run to the shower.
Yeah.
I find the sweat starts to dry really, really fast.
Yeah.
So I actually run to the shower and shower off all the toxins, if there are any left.
Because technically, if it's the toxins are on your skin, you could just reabsorb them if they dry, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, you absorb every toxin that you touch. Every time you're
Right.
touching plastic or BPA receipts or things like that, you're absorbing it through your skin. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why transdermal medications are becoming very popular because your skin very effectively absorbs medications and other, products that it touches.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so right now, kind of what you're doing with your patients dietarily, someone comes in to see you, are you just starting off with a general paleo diet, or how are you customizing the dietary recommendations that you're making for your patients?
Well, I don't do full paleo
Yeah.
because I think that, there has to be some consideration that some people have adapted to dairy.
Yeah.
Some people are fine with legumes. So
Mm-hmm.
I have developed what's called the modern paleo diet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what my upcoming book is about. And it's about where we need to begin with paleo as a base, maybe do it for 30 days, a full-on paleo diet. We are not eating, dairy and legumes and grains and gluten, things like that. But as you kind of, do that diet and get rid of all the foods that people are typically sensitive to, have food sensitivities to, then I think people can start to experiment and incorporate dairy and, grass-fed butter and other things like that. But if people don't want to do a food elimination diet because it's kind of a pain, I do food sensitivity testing. I do the mediator release test.
Mm-hmm.
It has about a 94% accuracy and, help give people a little starting point to what foods that they're sensitive to. I have many clients that are surprised that they're sensitive to beef or to caffeine or to ibuprofen because it tests food chemicals and a couple medications as well. So I find that people can be very much helped by finding out what their food sensitivities are, and that helps to reduce inflammation in their body and many of their health symptoms as well.
Got it. And what's that food sensitivity lab test you're using called?
Yeah, it's by Oxford Labs. It's called the MRT test, the
Mm-hmm.
mediator release test. It
Okay.
just tests your white blood cells reaction, like the how much mediators your white blood cells are releasing in response to a food. And it's
Mm-hmm.
a great test because it tells how sensitive you are to the food.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see the foods that you're just somewhat sensitive to and very, very sensitive to.
Right.
Really helps to give a great roadmap to what type of personalized diet you should be eating.
Right. And how's that different than like an ALCAT test?
I'm not 100% familiar. Is the ALCAT IgG?
I think it has to do more with like the white blood cells as well. It just sounds like a similar mechanism.
I think it's a similar test.
Okay.
Yeah, but most food sensitivity tests are IgG, which are the antibodies that are released about, 24 to maybe 48 hours or maybe a little bit longer
Mm-hmm.
after, those are the responses that you have to the foods after you eat them. So people can eat a food and then have a symptom 2 days later, a headache or whatnot, and they can't make the connection.
Mm-hmm.
So I think food sensitivity testing is very, very valuable.
Got it. Got it. And you mentioned your book here, the upcoming book that's coming out soon is the Modern Paleo Survival Guide. So what's the essence of that book? Is it just more helping people make this dietary and lifestyle shift? Like what's the overall goal of that book?
Well, it's all about diet, lifestyle, and detoxification.
Detox, okay
Because
too.
what I find is I have a lot of clients coming to me, they're eating perfectly.
Yeah.
They're eating a perfect paleo diet or a modern paleo diet or a bulletproof diet or whatever. And they're so good with their diet. They're also almost, they almost have orthorexia nervosa.
Right.
And well, of course they need to because they're not healthy. But I find that even doing that, they don't resolve their health issues. It's not the whole answer. And because many of them aren't taking enough supplements or not taking the right forms of minerals or what have you. So I wanted to write this book to talk about here's the diet you should be eating. And here's things you have to do with your lifestyle to be healthy. And you have to add detoxification because in our toxic modern world, if you are not tending to detoxification, you're not going to be healthy. It doesn't matter how well you eat or how much you sleep and exercise. I've got a million clients, they're in their 40s. They're like, but I eat perfect and I sleep 8 hours a night and I work out 3-4 times a week. Why don't I feel good? And it's because of the toxic chemicals and heavy metals in their bodies and the mineral and nutrient deficiencies.
Mm-hmm. And do you typically start detoxing patients right away, or is there some level of like getting people eating healthier and working on the adrenals first? How do you work that out?
Well, I usually urge them to start detoxing right away. Some clients are much too ill, so I urge them not to. It's all very much an individual
Yeah.
basis. But definitely right away, start them on a customized supplement program that's based on a hair mineral analysis. And I do all kinds of other testing too. And I'll recommend to people what they need. It helps me fine tune their supplements even more.
Yeah.
And but the hair mineral analysis is a great basis
Mm-hmm.
to design a supplement plan and then get them on a right diet, get them sleeping. The first thing we got to do is get people sleeping.
Yeah.
And so I like to do that with GABA and ashwagandha and other things
Yeah.
depending on what the people can tolerate.
Mm-hmm.
and they get them sleeping. And then at some point, most clients don't start doing the coffee enemas, infrared saunas right away. A lot of people don't like coffee enemas. Not super popular, but then eventually over time, after a few months, they'll start doing an infrared sauna, incorporating that into their Mineral Power program. But it's all very slow. Doing an infrared sauna is a very slow detoxification. It takes a long time to get rid of all the heavy metals and chemicals in our body. It takes about 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
Of a pretty intense, dedication and work of, mineralizing your body and doing infrared saunas and coffee enemas and things like that to get we have so many toxins in our body, and the body can only get rid of just a little bit at a time.
Right.
So it just takes a long time.
And how are you measuring and looking at detoxification? Are you doing organic acid testing to look at detoxification pathways?
Yeah, I do I really like it if clients do that, so I can see what their methylation is and whatnot. But by tending to minerals is the foundation. If you fix people's minerals, you fix methylation. Also, a lot of times I like the organic acids test to find oxalates, because if you just get rid of people's oxalates, you fix their methylation. A lot of things will come and will be fixed simply by tending to those two things. So you got to definitely regulate copper.
Right. So when you say oxalates, what do you mean by that specifically? Do you mean like the compounds that are in like spinach and kale and those things? Or are we talking about something else?
Yeah, those are the elements in spinach and other, greens and other foods. But what I find, because a lot of clients have, their body has become weakened. Many people have, chronic or systemic candida infections, and candidas will make oxalates. They'll take minerals from your body and vitamin C and create these oxalates. And for many people that have systemic candida infections, they cannot get rid of them until they address oxalates. And they're fairly easy to resolve. But you have to take, calcium citrate, magnesium citrate, potassium citrate in the form of lemon essential oil. And that will prevent the oxalates that you're eating from getting into your body and will help dissolve the oxalates that you have. They're kind of like these little barbs. They can cause leaky gut. They can cause anyone with kidney stones. You've got oxalates. You have oxalate issues. So they can cause lots of muscle pain. Anyone has unexplained muscle pain and the doctors can't figure out what it is, and you've had MRIs and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Oxalates probably.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised by how many clients I find oxalates in. So these have to be addressed. And then a lot of other health issues go away. Methylation gets fixed, and a lot of gut issues get fixed by correcting that. And then you can address the yeast. Then the yeast can finally be killed off once you get rid of the oxalates.
Got it. And the oxalates, I mean, we don't want to cut out a lot of these really healthy foods. So you're just giving more or less these nutrient supports to help break down the oxalates so they're not affecting us as much. Is that what you're doing?
Well, yeah, you want to do that, but you do have to go on a low oxalate diet. I mean, you do have to stop the source of intake. So it's just temporarily. It takes about 6 months, maybe a year of a low oxalate diet, sometimes even longer if the client is really bad off and pretty advanced symptoms. It can take as much as 2 years, but you also want to take calcium, magnesium citrate at every meal to prevent any oxalates that are in your food from getting into your body.
Right. And would cooking some of those things help reduce the oxalates?
Not completely, not totally. People definitely need to eliminate spinach and some of the typically healthy foods, but it's only temporary.
Yeah.
And people there's plenty of other options, plenty of other healthy foods.
We may also cut out teas and nuts too.
Yeah, unfortunately. And coffee, stevia,
Coffee, got it.
popcorn, things like that.
Okay. All right. That makes a lot of sense. Well, I wanted to transition here to pregnancy. And I'm just curious, how many kids do you have, Wendy?
I have one.
One. Okay, so you've actually gone through this. This isn't actually theoretical here.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that. Because I talk about, pregnancy planning for my female patients, and I've, studied lots of people that have gone through it, but, obviously I haven't gone through it myself yet. So, or my family hasn't yet. So looking at pregnancy planning and detoxification, how does one get ready for pregnancy? Obviously, we don't want to be detoxing while we're pregnant because we don't want to be liberating toxins and exposing the fetus to that. Is that correct? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have several clients that are pregnant that are on my Mineral Power program.
Yeah.
And, your body is always detoxing, even if you're pregnant.
Right.
So when with my Mineral Power program, I just help to mineralize someone's body.
Right.
Because when you have a baby, when you're growing a baby inside you, it sucks all the minerals out of your body.
Right.
And when you have the baby, and what many women find is they develop adrenal and thyroid issues following pregnancy because they just don't have enough minerals. It's all been given to the baby. So it's really, really important to mineralize your body for a couple years prior. And this
Right.
is not prenatal vitamins. This is really taking a lot of magnesium. Because I don't like prenatal vitamins because they have a lot of copper in them.
Mm-hmm.
Some can have as many as 4 grams of copper, and that's not ideal. When women are pregnant, they just retain a lot of copper because we need copper to make the baby's nervous system. So we don't need to OD on copper when we're pregnant. So I actually tell women to avoid prenatal vitamins
Mm-hmm.
and to just take regular vitamins. Because some women don't do well with folate. They can get it from eating lots of green vegetables. And of course, that's complicated, individualized. You have to do testing and 23andMe and other testing to find out if women tolerate folate or not. Yeah, I'm just a big fan of taking lots of minerals, zinc, lots of magnesium, and B complex, methylated B complex, maybe even B minus with no folate and B12 in it, and just strengthen the body so that you're not just completely trashed once you have the baby. Because I think what a lot of women find is that once they have the child, they're extremely exhausted. They have all kinds of hormonal issues and adrenal fatigue and chronic fatigue and other things like that. And it's just because they're so depleted.
That makes sense. So we get the diet right. We're doing good. Let's say we've already done some detoxification where we're punctuating it. We're really trying to emphasize toxin liberation outside of what's normal. Now we get pregnant. What should we be focusing on while we're pregnant?
Well, like I said, just definitely taking lots of minerals.
So the minerals, like staying on all the minerals, obviously trying to eat the nutrient-dense foods. Is there any additional foods you may add in, like liver or pate or
Yeah, you're always reading my mind. Right before I make an answer, you always say it. But yes, liver is amazing. I eat tons of foie gras
Oh,
and
love it.
pates and things when I was pregnant. I just really crave them, and they have lots of copper in them. You don't have to take copper supplements. You just want to make sure you eat some liver. It's got lots of iron and copper in it, and zinc that you need for your healthy baby. And I like fish eggs also.
Yeah.
Fish eggs are.
Caviar?
Yeah, those are a food that salmon roe is great, but those are food that in a lot of ancient cultures and traditional tribal cultures, hunter-gatherers,
Yeah.
they save fish eggs and caviar only for the pregnant women
Yeah.
because they have lots of cholesterol and just lots of healthy nutrients in them. So that's a big one. And I think women, I really actually like coffee enemas for pregnant women
Okay.
because a lot of women are constipated, especially in the latter part of their pregnancy, and it's just really miserable. And I think coffee enemas or even just water enemas if you're not doing any caffeine. But when you're pregnant, you can do about 200 milligrams of caffeine per day, and it's okay. But ideally, you don't want caffeine. So if you don't want to do coffee enemas, you can at least do water enemas, and that can be really, really helpful because it's not healthy and it's not fun to be constipated when you're 9 months pregnant.
Got it. So if we did some decaf bulletproof coffee, that'd be okay.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay, cool. So we can do that, and that's not going to liberate toxins enough systemically to cause a problem to the baby?
No, because they're being dumped into the intestines for elimination.
Got it. So it's pulling
Yeah.
them into the intestines and then right out the toilet when you get up, right?
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing, even when you're pregnant, you're still detoxing. I mean,
Right.
your body is still doing that. So it's not really as big an issue as people think. Your body is always detoxing no matter if you're pregnant or not.
Just the difference is we're punctuating it. We're increasing it by 500, 600, 800%, whatever. If we did the coffee enema, right? That's kind of the goal to.
Yeah, it definitely increases detox for sure. But those toxins are actually
It's
being
local in the gut.
pulled out of your body and excreted.
Got it. How
Yeah.
about probiotics during pregnancy?
Yeah, I think those are fine.
Mhm.
I typically don't like the ones you get at the grocery store.
Right.
I tend to like the ones, the probiotics will have a number next to them on the
Yeah.
label, and those are clinically proven strains of probiotics.
Mm.
And so those are the ones you want to do. And I really like HLC by Pharmax. I think the HLC Intensive, that's a
Yeah.
really good probiotic that I recommend to my clients.
Do you like the VSL3 strand too?
Yes, absolutely. And
Cool.
Prescripticis is great too.
So you like the soil base too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any things during pregnancy you really want to avoid? You mentioned no more than 200 milligrams of caffeine. What's the edict with alcohol? Should a woman drink any alcohol at all, or is a little bit every now and then okay?
Ideally no alcohol.
Yeah.
When I was pregnant, I had probably 5 drinks. I wasn't too strict, but just every once in a while, I have a few sips of my husband's beer or whatever.
Yeah.
But only 5 times that I do that, and I think that's okay. But alcohol, especially in the beginning of the pregnancy, can be very damaging to the fetus's developing brain.
Right.
It can definitely kill lots of brain cells, and obviously you don't want that. But a lot of women, are drinking before they realize that they're pregnant, and the
Yep.
babies are okay. So it's like one of those, edicts, everything in moderation. But ideally, you definitely want to avoid alcohol when you're pregnant.
Right. And I hear like in the very beginning it's okay because the cell isn't fully attached to the placenta yet. Is that true? It's really when it attaches, that's when it makes a bigger difference.
Well, yeah, especially when the cells are rapidly dividing,
Yeah.
and I mean that happens really, really quickly. But when the cells start dividing very, very rapidly, then you can begin to get a lot of problems. Alcohol is very, very toxic,
Hmm.
and so you can start running into issues and a lot of die-off of cells when the baby is first forming. So it can be very, very problematic in that first month.
Hmm. Are there any other don'ts, like no supplements we shouldn't be doing when pregnant?
Yeah, definitely glandulars are probably off the menu.
Okay.
If I was pregnant, I would still do glandulars. I give all my clients glandulars because, why do we eat organ meats?
Right.
Because they're very, very rich in minerals. Same
Right.
with liver, very rich in minerals. But there's some physicians that are, advise their pregnant clients to not take glandulars. I would personally take them when I was pregnant because I feel like they're just minerals. They've had the hormones removed. And they really help to rebuild the adrenals and thyroid or whatever glandular you're taking. They have those minerals for that gland
Right.
to work better.
And you'd probably want to just make sure they're getting them from like maybe a New Zealand or Argentinian source that's, grass-fed, not GMO, like that kind of thing, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that most of the glandulars out there are grass-fed,
Hmm.
a lot of them out there.
Is there a company that you like?
Yeah, I really like Allergy Research.
Yeah,
They
I
have
like
a
them too.
nice one. Dr. Ron's has amazing glandulars that are
Hmm.
he's got all them a lot of different glandulars.
Hmm.
They're fantastic. I have one by Endomet,
Hmm.
made by Analytical Research Labs. It's really nice too.
Got it. Do you like the ones made by Biotics?
Yeah, yeah, those are fantastic. Yeah, I love Biotics Research.
Cool. So what else should women be doing while they're pregnant? So, we do some coffee enemas here and there. Maybe we prepare and do a lot of detoxification work and hormone support and stuff before we get pregnant. Now we're pregnant, we're eating fish eggs, caviar, liver, maybe some glandulars. Maybe every now and then we sneak a sip of someone's libation, if you will. What else should we be doing and or not doing?
Well, you definitely want to avoid raw cheese,
Okay.
raw milk. A lot of, paleo community are big on the raw dairy. But the problem is if you run into listeria,
Yeah.
which is, Bluebonnet ice cream in Texas, they had
Mhm.
3 people die from listeria,
Yeah.
from contamination from when their ice cream was contaminated. And the problem is that can be fatal to a fetus. So no raw cheeses, raw milks, things like that, because there's just a higher incidence of listeria in the raw cheeses.
Got it. Got it. And then should we be
Yeah.
looking at thyroid function at all during pregnancy? I know iodine's really important because it could prevent cretinism, which is the number one preventable form of retardation. But we also have this thyroid Hashimoto's type of thing where iodine could potentially exacerbate that. How do you split that?
Well, I'm not of the camp that thinks that iodine exacerbates Hashimoto's.
Hmm.
I find Hashimoto's is fairly easy to reverse
Hmm.
because it's an infection. Part of it is an infection in the thyroid that's very easily treatable by using an infrared sauna.
Hmm.
Many women, they just have to get the toxins out of their thyroid
Hmm.
and, get rid of all the chlorine and fluoride that blocks iodine's uptake in the thyroid,
Hmm.
and they need to nourish their thyroid.
Hmm.
So with my clients, even if they do have Hashimoto's, I do give them kelp I really like the Modophyllin or the Oregon's Wild Harvest kelp. They test it for heavy metals at Oregon's Wild Harvest. It's harvested in Iceland, and it gives you
Mm.
20 to 30 trace minerals, and gives you that iodine that because you really can't OD on iodine. But most people are deficient, even if they get adequate. They're 150 micrograms. The USDA says we need, or the FDA. In reality, because so many municipalities put chlorine and fluoride in the water, this blocks the iodine that people are eating.
Hmm.
And our thyroid hormones are made of iodine. So the iodine has all these competitors and is blocked from, being taken up into the thyroid. So I think kelp supplementation or iodine like Lugol's or what have you, I prefer the kelp, but I think that's really imperative that people do to heal their thyroids and nourish them.
Hmm. Got it. So if someone came in with a thyroid issue, would you throw iodine at it right away? Would you see if it's an autoimmune issue? Would you start doing other things, maybe working on the adrenals or supporting the mineral? Like, is there a certain sequence you go about it at, or?
Well, I start with nourishing the body right away. So I do start right away with kelp. I do urge clients if I sense they might have an autoimmune issue, they have leaky gut, they have lots of food sensitivities and
Hmm.
symptoms of a leaky gut like digestive issues, heartburn, or constipation or diarrhea. Yeah, then I start worrying, potentially that could be an issue. Most of my
Hmm.
clients coming to me have thyroid testing already. They've had antibodies. But as we know, there's lots of false negatives with autoimmune thyroid
Yeah.
issues. Just because you do test the antibodies and it's negative doesn't mean you don't have it. But for me, what I find is I do start just increasing the body's overall vitality. And I give kelp right away. And some people don't tolerate kelp, and that's okay. They have to try it to find out if it works or not. But I find that overall, I'm not just targeting one gland or one body system. I'm just increasing the body's overall vitality, which takes a long time. It just doesn't happen overnight.
Hmm.
And then I, see what's going on with the client, what other kind of health issues they have, and recommend further testing to, investigate more of what's going on. And then I always recommend, getting more sleep and helping the client sleep better. I do neurotransmitter testing as well, and definitely getting them in an infrared sauna as soon as possible.
Got it. So now let's say we're having a healthy pregnancy, we're doing great. What do you recommend? Like, what's your take on giving birth? Like, are you more birthing center? Are you trying to do more of an at-home thing? Are you trying to avoid the hospital? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, I think it's such an individual decision. I mean, I had a girlfriend that had both her pregnancies. She tried to do it at home, but she just couldn't dilate and she had to go to the hospital. But her second pregnancy, her uterus ripped open and she could have died. There is, risk in doing home births, but I think many women, thousands of women do them at home beautifully and have a wonderful experience. For me, I actually had a C-section. My baby had a really, really large head, and I was terrified
Yeah.
of just giving natural birth. And I don't know, it didn't appeal to me.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I don't think that's really probably the healthiest attitude. I probably should have tried to do natural childbirth.
Right.
But again, it's an individual. It's an
Hmm.
individual thing. And luckily, when I did have my C-section, the doctor found this huge mass of blood vessels on my uterus that she said she had never seen before. So perhaps natural childbirth might have been dangerous for me. I think I might have been a higher risk for hemorrhaging or something. So again, I just think for every woman, it's incredibly individual, but I think it's worth definitely researching doing a home birth. I was researching it and got very, very excited about doing a home birth, considered it for a little while, but then ultimately decided it wasn't for me. So I don't have an opinion either way. It's too individual.
Yeah, I agree. And then whatever you do, even if you do a home birth, I think always have a plan B, an escape route in case something does happen. That's really important.
Yeah, I think it's very important. Like my girlfriend had a doctor. She actually had a gynecologist, an OB/GYN, sorry, at her home. And so the doctor knew when she was in trouble and to take her to the doctor or take her to the hospital rather. So I think, there's amazing birthing centers. I think birthing centers are probably more, better equipped to do birthing than at a hospital.
Hmm.
I wasn't thrilled with my hospital experience. So I think a birthing center is a wonderful thing for many women.
Yeah, I mean, the research is pretty clear too. You go to a hospital, your chance of having extra epidurals or episiotomies or just extra interventions is significantly higher. I know they've done studies on that. And I know the United States, I think the infant mortality rate, I think it's like 40th in the world. And I think
Yeah.
people are just kind of brainwashed in the sense that like, oh, it's so safe, this modern technology. But we look at stats of countries like Holland or countries in the Europe where it's accustomed to have a midwife and potentially even do an at-home birth or a birthing center, and their infant mortality rates are far lower than the U.S. So there's
Yeah.
definitely, some propaganda out there, skewing people into thinking that this is super, super safe, where we know 40th out of, 170 countries isn't the best when we're a first world country.
Yeah, because I know in Holland, I have friends in Holland, and they absolutely frown upon cesarean
Oh,
section. It just you can't have one unless you have some medical issue or you have an emergency. And for cesarean section, there's lots of issues with that. I mean, there's definitely when you're opening up that abdominal cavity, much higher risk for infection. The baby does not get the benefits of being birthed through that canal and getting those probiotics in the vaginal canal and populating their gut. So children that are born cesarean have a higher incidence of allergies and asthma and gut-related issues because they don't have that benefit of that early population of their gut. And there's lots of other issues related to cesarean section, which we don't have to get into. But in the U.S., the cesarean birth rate is at 25%, and that's extremely high. And I think it
yeah.
probably is one of the reasons why we have more complications. I think definitely, we need to give birth as Mother Nature intended, or at least give it a shot, try it. That wasn't my personal choice. I don't have the knowledge that I have now at that time, unfortunately. So I made a decision out of ignorance.
Right.
But I would probably make a different decision next time. I would at least have tried to do natural childbirth.
Yeah, my wife and I are looking at interviewing midwives soon, and I'm pushing to go as natural as possible. I think I'm probably leaning more towards the birthing center route, just because you have that kind of safety net there.
Yeah.
But I think everyone, if they're in that camp, they should definitely interview a midwife, because they've done like surveys where they've interviewed obstetricians or OBGYNs, and they said, how many of you have actually engaged in a natural birthing process, and none of them have. Like, no, none of the hands went up. So it's like, if your goal is to have a natural birthing process and you're trying to have someone that's never done that, it's really difficult. So your best person to interview would be a midwife, and interview your OBGYN too, and get both sides of their perspective before you make a decision.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point, because you do want a doctor who has experience with natural childbirth, because what I find is that, these OB/GYNs, they're on call, it's very inconvenient, and they do things to hurry along the birth. They do episiotomies, they'll give medications to induce labor and do other things that are very harmful to the baby and to the mother. And they do that because it makes their job easier, not because it's healthier for you. So you have to be very, very aware of, the complications from certain procedures and medications that people, as a pregnant woman, you'll be given that can really have disastrous effects.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So, like, once you give birth, what's the best thing next? I mean, do we get right back on the wagon with the eating plan, or is there something else? Should we be doing more organ meats in that first 48 hours when the colostrum's flowing for the baby? Is there anything specifically we should be focusing on after?
Yeah, I've actually had a few girlfriends that they have their placenta dried and put in capsules and they eat it because a lot of traditional cultures, the women eat the placenta because
Yes.
it just gives you it's kind of disgusting. But this is what a lot of women do in traditional cultures. So there's a lot of women that are, imitating that. But I think it's a very good idea to eat lots of organ meats, eat tons and tons of minerals, get that breast milk really, really mineral rich. But yeah, you still have to take supplements, lots of magnesium and zinc and other things, so your breast milk has more minerals, and that's very beneficial to the baby.
Yeah, I've had multiple patients who have histories of PTSD, and we've recommended placental encapsulation, where you can basically make your own brand of supplements, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool. You get the placenta fried up. Typically, they'll cook it and stuff, and then they'll freeze dry it, and they'll put it in the little capsules. And I've seen across the board with, in the double digits of patients noticing significant improvement where, you know, post-traumatic depression or stress after the baby's born is just almost non-existent.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason that millions of women are doing that, around the world and, throughout time. There's an intelligence in that. So I think it's smart to do that. I didn't choose to do that. It kind of freaked me out when I first heard about it. But that was a while ago before I knew what I was talking about in regards to health. But I think that's a very, very good thing to do.
Yeah, and I think the word I misconfused. I said post-traumatic stress. It's postpartum.
Yeah.
Postpartum is
Yeah.
the word.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
cool.
knew what you were trying to say.
Yes. Yeah, you got it. You got it. So that's great. I think we went over a ton of really good things. Is there anything else that you want to touch upon that you think super important? I mean, obviously we got your podcast that people can tune into and your book, The Modern Paleo Survival Guide. Is there anything else you want to touch upon, Wendy?
Yeah, well, I forgot to mention a little bit more about infrared
Oh
saunas.
yeah.
I think there's a lot of things people don't know about them. When I say sauna, a lot of people think of, like the sauna at their
Right.
gym, the wooden sauna, and that's
Mhm.
kind of a Swedish or Finnish sauna. And then there are, those have a little bit of benefit. They're not infrared saunas and they're not as beneficial as infrared saunas. Then you have far infrared saunas.
Mm.
Those are what most people are familiar with. They've got the black fabric panels surrounding the sauna, a nice wooden setup.
Mhm.
And those rays penetrate about 1 to 2 inches inside you and definitely lots of benefits. But my favorite sauna is a near infrared sauna. And near infrared saunas penetrate about 3 to 4 inches, even up to
Wow.
9 inches, like some claims. And these just use red bulbs. They're red heat lamps. And you get some color therapy with that. And they just have a lot more benefits over and above the far infrared saunas, namely EMF. Some of the cheaper far infrared saunas from China are really shockingly high in EMFs.
Wow.
But I have a lot of articles on my website about near versus far infrared saunas and lots of podcasts about infrared saunas. And in my store.live110.com, I've got my favorite near infrared saunas, the ones that I use, called Sauna Space. So I think it's very important to make those distinctions, because as long as you're going to be sitting in the sauna, you might as well do a near infrared sauna because it's a lot cheaper. Some far infrared saunas can cost two, three, four, upwards dollars, thousands of dollars, and a near infrared sauna can cost $1,000 or less.
Oh wow.
And you can have it in your home. And I think this piece of equipment is the single most important thing people can do for their health, because we have 80,000 chemicals and dozens of heavy metals in our environment, and they are making us sick. And it's only going to get worse. There's thousands of chemicals added every single year. And as the world becomes more and more toxic, people are going to have more and more diseases and mysterious diseases. The doctors have no idea what it's caused by, because very few of them are looking at heavy metals and chemicals as a root cause of disease. So I think near infrared saunas are, going to be a very powerful weapon against disease, especially in, coming decades.
That's great. And what's that brand that you like?
Really like Sauna Space.
Sauna Space. Have you heard of a brand called Sunlighten?
Yeah, Sunlight is great. They're a far infrared saunas primarily. I've used their sauna they say it has near infrared, near
Yeah.
mid, and far, but I don't think you're getting really that much near.
Okay.
Those I've used those extensively, and you can't set it to only near. You're kind of limited in the settings on the sauna, so I don't think you're really getting that near. And they're also not using the bulbs.
Yeah.
I think and many of my clients have a far infrared sauna, and they just put a few bulbs in the sauna, a few near infrared bulbs, and kind of convert it
Yeah.
to a near infrared sauna. But they're all good. Far, near, all of them are good. Just get in a sauna.
Got it. So you like the near infrared, you like Sauna Space.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to pick one up. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're amazing, and they're very small. You can break them down if you have to move. They're very easy to take down, and they're portable. And they're all made with all organic cotton canvas and poplar wood. They're just very nice saunas.
Very cool. So Wendy, your website's live to110.com. You got the Live to 110 podcast. Any other information about your products, websites, or people can find you and get to know you more?
Yeah, well, I actually just launched, tomorrow it's launching my new online health program. It's called bodybioRehab.com. And that's kind of an online health program that's very similar to my book. It talks about diet, exercise, sleep, the importance of stress reduction and detoxification. It's a pretty comprehensive 6-week program to really help people learn the basics of health and detoxification, et cetera.
Awesome, Wendy. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It was great having me. Thank you so much.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to beyondwellnessradio.com/question. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.